Emma Vidgen, you are so welcome to Livsenergi-podden. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here, beaming in from Sydney, Australia.
Sydney, Australia. So you have winter and we have summer.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've got my cozy sweater on.
But I assume we have about the same temperature still. Today we have like 18, 19 degrees.
That is spot on.
Spot on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So winter for me is like -10.
Yes, we are very fragile when it comes to the cold weather here.
The funny thing is, I think I would be so happy in a warm climate, and still I'm here all year round. No, you can't have everything, but you can have you can have more insight to your life if you follow the planets.
That's true.
So this is your book, Emma. It's called The Astrology of You in English, and in Swedish we say din egen astrologi. So it's kind of your own astrology if you want to directly translate it. We are so happy that you have written this book.
Thank you. I'm so happy you're reading it.
Yes. So do you want me to tell you why I chose to give out this book in Swedish?
Absolutely, yes. I'm dying to know how you came across it and the whole story.
Yeah, great. So the publishing company, Hardy Grant, I have regular contact with them, and they showed this to me. And after a while, I needed to look at it again because it told me something. First of all, it's so beautiful, and then, so my story with astrology is kind of complicated because I think it's so complicated. And there are so many names and so many different meanings, and there are so many, it's so big.
It is.
So you help me here. This book is like a handbook. I mean, looking at this, it's like, it doesn't say anything to me, and I just get stressed about it. But then you make a book and everything is like, okay, so now I can read my own astrology and understand it.
That makes me so happy to hear that. That's exactly why I wrote it. And it was
So you heard it before.
Yeah. It was difficult to, I guess, distill something that is so complex, and there's so much history, thousands and thousands of years of theory into just a little book, and try and make it accessible and understandable. But hopefully that's what I've managed to do. I really wanted this to be for want of a better word, like a gateway drug. So you dip your toe in and hopefully get hooked on astrology.
But you can come a long way with this, even though, I mean, when talking to people about astrology, since I'm not deeply knowledged in this area, I mean, people know certain things, but so I think the mass market, or a big group of people who are interested, I mean, in Sweden we see a rise in the interest of astrology from young age to adults. It's coming even, well, again, I guess. What do you say in Australia?
Yeah, it's definitely just been growing in popularity, and something that is no longer kind of on the fringes or seen as super alternative. You hear people talking about astrology on the train on the way to work or in the office, and it's not in hushed tones like they're embarrassed or trying to keep it on the down low. You know, everyone is talking about it, particularly people of a certain age. Gen Z particularly, and Gen Y are more kind of invested in it, I think. But it's certainly really taken off and has mass appeal, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think,
I don't know, especially
in such uncertain times, I think people are looking for something to help understand life and feel that things have meaning and hope. And that's one of the things that astrology can bring to your life, and one of the reasons why I fell in love with it. So I think that's probably why we're seeing this huge increase in people really turning to it.
I agree, and I am welcoming everything that makes it easy and interesting for people to look inside.
Absolutely.
So, Emma, you have a story. What's your
Mhm.
story? How did your journey start off to end up where you are today with everything that you do? I know that you love the body, mind, spirit area of life.
Mhm.
Tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh gosh, this is so hard. It's like being on a first date. I think I probably first became aware of astrology and interested in it growing up. My parents were quite open to it. I wouldn't say that they were hippy dippy by any means, but they were, they were quite open to meditation and astrology and things like that. They used to see mediums. So it was never really considered less than in my household. It was something that we talked about, and people, we would read horoscopes in the newspaper or magazines or watch them on television. So I knew very early on that I was a Virgo, but I never understood how I could be a Virgo because I'm super duper untidy. And not at all that stereotype of, incredibly meticulous and with a great attention to detail. But I still enjoyed it. And as I mentioned, my dad was very into meditation. So I guess spirituality, in a broader sense, was something that was just totally normal for me, and not a, weird thing to kind of get into or experiment with. But like so many other people, I think, I lost touch with that side of myself in my late teens and early 20s when I started working in magazines, and, you get swept away with your first full-time jobs and boys and partying, and all of that kind of stuff went on the back burner. And it wasn't until further down the line, maybe when I was about 30 and I felt incredibly burnt out, that I just felt like there was something more that was missing. I had become super invested in fitness and eating well, and so I was putting the body part I was trying to get that right, but there was still something that was a bit off. And it wasn't until I saw my beautiful herbalist. She said, I want you to stop running and meditate. And that's all you can do. Yin yoga and meditation. Your adrenal system is in just overdrive. You just need to calm down. And that was really the thing that kind of got me interested in more esoteric practices. And in terms of astrology, I guess I pretty early on in that rediscovery and reconnection of that part of myself, I just came across it again, and it just spoke to me, and it really resonated. And I had a reading, and it was like someone was just, I felt like she was psychic. I couldn't understand how she could know the things she was telling me. And it was just all from my birth chart. And I thought, I have to know how to do this.
So you dove deep?
I did. I've got a very strong Pluto influence in my chart, which means I have obsessive tendencies. And when I get into something, I really get into it. And so I just consumed everything that I could find about astrology. I did courses and books and podcasts, and there's so much great information on the internet now, and just really immersed myself in it. And decided that I wanted to qualify and do the kind of highest qualifications that you can do here in Australia. Sat the professional exams, and yeah, that's kind of the beginning of how it all started for me.
So now you're here, how many years after your rediscovery?
About 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
And
sort
this
of,
is what you do?
I still work as a journalist, so I'm not a full-time astrologer. I was for a couple of years, but I've gone back to doing some writing as well on the side. So it's a little bit of a juggle, but it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, writing is a lot of fun too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But you have places online where you write for the astrological side of you as well, right? We can find
Mhm.
you.
Absolutely. So I have a weekly column in Grazia, which is at grazia.com, and a monthly column with a beauty magazine called Gritty Pretty, which is at grittypretty.com.au.
And then you have the astrologyofyou.com.
That's correct. Yes, that's my official website, which is also linked to my own, I guess, online magazine. I guess you would call it The Wayward, which I started about 4 years ago with a friend of mine. And I don't update that as much as I would like to, but I do from time to time.
But I bet what you write there is very interesting to our authors, to our audience.
Absolutely. It's only body, mind, spirit stuff. It's just yoga and beautiful, clean food and astrology. And yeah, nothing is too esoteric for the wayward.
True. So I know that you have kids and they are quite young, aren't
Mhm.
they? How many
Yeah.
kids do you have?
I have a little girl who is 3 and a little boy who's 1. So
That's
it's a very crazy house.
I have to. Can I just share what you told me the other day? That, well, 5 o'clock, the kids are not at their best, so please later.
Yeah.
I know exactly. You know, my kids are in the upper teens, 15, 17, and 19. So I'm kind of crawling out of that children time, the child. How do you say, like the small years?
Childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do you manage? I mean, being spiritual or living the spiritual life that you want to, it requires a certain sense of presence and holding space for yourself. How do you manage with family life?
Well, I think that becoming a mother has taught me to be a lot more flexible and creative with how I can practice things like mindfulness, because the reality is, I can't go and do a 10-day silent retreat anymore. It's just not practical. Sometimes I don't even have time in the morning to meditate. So it's about finding the moments in your day and in your schedule where you can be really present, whether that's with them or whether it's 5 minutes on my own. I always say, when I catch the train into the city, I try not to look at my phone on the train, and I just try and have that 10 or 15 minutes to meditate, just be still, and pay attention to, physical sensations rather than scrolling mindlessly. And when I'm with them, I try to really be present for them and play, because I feel like that's a form of kind of moving meditation, to just be there and be really aware and in the game with them. And that feels very spiritually nourishing to me right now. So it's not the way my practice looked beforehand, but it's evolving.
And it needs to. I mean, things are not the same all life.
Exactly. Yeah. And I
So,
think you can, I think you can get really worked up if you hold on too tight and you're trying to like fit your old life into your new life, because it's just not going to work. So you just have to surrender.
Yeah. Speaking about that, do you have a motto in life that you try to follow, or that you kind of preach to yourself and to life?
One that I'm not very good at following, because I do have the perfectionist tendency from my Virgo sun, is good enough is good enough. So I can really get caught up in trying to get things just right before I let them go into the world, whether it's just an article or, anything really. So I'm just trying to be compassionate and accepting of myself, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think good enoughness, that kind of term, was created just a couple of years ago. And I think it's helping a lot of people just to understand that we're good enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you are a Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
When's your birthday?
The 18th of September.
Oh, really?
Is that yours?
I have 2 people in my life on that day. No,
Oh,
3.
really?
Yeah, 3. 2
Oh,
brothers. 2 brothers on
wow.
the same day.
Wow.
And
Oh,
they're
that's
not
so
twins.
cool.
They're not twins.
That must have been really hard growing up for them.
You mean being on the same, having the same birthday? It
Like
was.
having to share the birthday
I
excitement.
think for my younger brother, it was hard because he didn't think that he got the attention. And that's what I've heard a long time ago. The funny thing is, I have 2 children on the same birthday as well,
Do
but with 2
you?
years apart. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same, but that's a girl, older girl, and a younger boy. And somehow they have managed to see it as their thing.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm hoping it's okay, but it will. Yeah. So sorry, back to you. 18th. This is so funny. What year are you born?
82.
82. So
Mhm.
18th September. So what's a Virgo like? You told us a little bit.
So it is an earth sign. It's mutable. So that's a way that we classify the signs. And mutable means that it's very adaptable. So we're good at adapting to situations and fitting in. So if you think of kind of like jelly or some kind of globby substance, we can fit into different spaces. So very hardworking and practical, and always looking for ways to refine situations and make things better for the people around them, but often in a way that comes across like we're nitpicking, because we're looking for that best practice. It's like quality assurance all the time. How could we be doing this better? There must be a more efficient way. And it's not necessarily coming from a place of criticism, but it does often land that way. The archetype is also that because of that attention to kind of procedural things, we're very good with detail, but that's definitely not me.
But you have the perfectionist line.
It
That's
definitely, it's more, it's not a technical attention to detail. It's more like just working on things and making the scope of the job bigger and bigger.
Okay. So I'm interested to hear, because you told me that you did not understand the Virgo sign from the beginning because you didn't see yourself 100% there. So I think that's quite common. In my case, I am born on 18th of May, and my colleague on the 17th, and she is kind of interested in astrology.
Yeah.
And she said, well, we are stubborn and we are non-flexible and we are so on. So I can be stubborn for sure, but I don't see myself as being non-flexible and not like, I love flexibility, and I don't like the everything has to be in the same way and routines and stuff. I'm not that person at all. So when we are these people who don't really see that I can't buy the Taurus right off.
Mm-hmm.
What should we do? What do you think we should do?
So I think the first thing to understand is that the sun sign, which is the sign that we all know, that my sun is in Virgo and your sun is in Taurus, is only one small part of the chart. And it is important, yes. The luminaries, the sun and the moon in your chart are very important, but they're not the only thing that's going on. And we have all of the planets in our chart, and we actually have all of the signs in our chart. So it is entirely possible that while your sun is in Taurus, you have, from what you're saying to me, I'm hearing a lot of Gemini, that you've got planets in Gemini. And talking to you, I was thinking I was getting maybe some Aquarius rising, I don't know. So there's so much more to the astrology of you. I wish I could say it in Swedish. To understand. And yeah, the analogies that I use are things like, it's like only ever seeing a French film versus visiting Paris. There's just no comparison between just reading Taurus. You are stubborn, you are, you like nice things and good food, and you're slow moving, and a person who only does routine. It's like generalizing all French people love bread. You know what I mean? It's just crazy because there's so many different kinds. And there's really no limit to how detailed and exquisitely unique everyone's chart is. So if you don't feel like your sun sign, don't stress.
And I hope that a lot of people that are listening to this can actually, I think they will relate, because, we read, even though you're not interested in astrology, you read horoscopes from when you were a kid and, going to life's end. But I want people to take astrology more seriously. That would be so interesting if people could actually just look into their day of birth and everything that happened that day in the universe and understand. So somehow I believe in a bigger thing than just me and you here on Earth. And I figure there must be a plan, like a blueprint And this is one of them.
That's right.
Yes. And there are so many details in here, so we just need to learn it. I am super excited to get to know this, but can I tell you something? I don't know what time I am born.
Okay.
Because
have you got a ballpark? Do you know roughly, like morning, afternoon?
I was in contact with the hospital, and my journal is erased and it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother says 7, 8 in the evening, and my father is very determined on the afternoon, 4, 3, 4.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's a smaller window than many people have. So that's good.
Oh,
so we're looking between 3 and 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know that a lot of people don't know when they are born. I know that you also talk about this in the book. What do you suggest they do?
So there are a few different things that you can try. I would, first of all, go to my website, to theastrologyofyou.com, and cast your chart for, say, 6 a.m. and then midday, and then maybe 8 p.m. and just have a look and see whether any of the planets are changing signs on that day. The most important one will be the moon, and the moon does change signs every 2.5 days.
Yeah.
And so your moon could be in one of 2 signs potentially, or it may be, a day where it hasn't changed signs. But when you then go into the book and you read the moon sign for Aquarius and Pisces, and you start to read what that means for your emotional landscape, because that's what the moon represents, straight away you're going to get a vibe. You'll be like, oh no, that's definitely not me. Pisces is the artist. It's super duper creative and romantic and gets lost in relationships. And I think I say, how to romance a Pisces moon, like write them a sonnet. And I'm not even being funny. They would like that. Whereas an Aquarius moon is fiercely independent, and they love their own space, and they're very much in their own head, and they can come across a little emotionally detached. So you can see they're 2 very different vibes. So that would be a really good place to start to figure out if you're like the morning or the evening. You'll be able to narrow that down.
Yeah.
And then
But
after that,
a good takeaway. Yeah.
Yeah, you could work with a professional astrologer who could do something called rectification, which it's super complex, but they essentially get you to answer questions about significant moments in your life and then cross-reference them with what the astrological weather was doing, and then make some calculated guesses at what your chart might be, given all of the things that you've described. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I'm happy to hear this, because for 2 years now, I've been a little bit, I was really going into understanding my astrological chart. And I kind of gave up hope, because I got so many different messages about this time of birth was so important. So I'm glad to hear that you can go around it in different ways and understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. And between 3 and 8, that's not a vast window to be working with. So I feel like that wouldn't be too hard if you work with an astrologer to figure out.
That's good. So what made you write this book, really? I mean,
Honestly,
if you also consider your astrological chart, was there anything, in that time that led you here?
oh goodness. I mean, my chart was just screaming, write a book from a million different angles. But that's the funny thing about astrology. When you're looking at a chart, it will be saying the same thing in 4 different ways, you know, like it just has a way of speaking almost in sentences to you. And mine was definitely saying, write a book, write a book, write a book. But other than that, I guess writing a book is something that I've always wanted to do. And when I was first learning astrology, I couldn't find a recent book that really spoke to me that I found to be a good starting point that explained the basic concepts in a way that I could understand easily, other than books by Stephen Forrest, who is an incredible astrologer. But the books that I was reading of his were from a couple of decades ago. So I was excited to potentially build on the foundations of his philosophies and make this kind of astrology accessible for particularly millennials and Gen Z.
Yeah. So I think that this book is a broad book, and it caters to, I don't actually know what kind of generation I am, born in the 70s, but I think it's a book for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to understand. It's lovely. There are so many illustrations and colors, and it's just beautiful to follow. But it's kind of deep. I mean, you can dive deep, and not only in your own chart, you can dive deep in someone else's chart, for example, in your family or your relationships. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I have had many wonderful anecdotes from readers saying that they have bought the book, and they always bring it out at dinner parties, and they read everyone's charts, because there will always be someone at the dinner party that doesn't believe in astrology and it's all rubbish. So they love to get it out and just read it to them and prove them wrong. Or I had another reader report that she had taken a guy home and made him look himself up in the morning to check his credentials. So it's all purpose.
All purpose. Yes. And I mean, I like, there are so many ways of knowing yourself, like getting your own personal unique blueprint in astrology, in human design, or in any other kind of personal system to understand our differences.
Mm-hmm.
And astrology is, like you said, it's a very old tradition and philosophy. And I think there are different schools of it.
That's right.
What school are you following? You mentioned Forrester.
Stephen Forrest, yeah. So I would say I'm probably an evolutionary astrologer, which means that we read the moon's nodes, which are in chapter 5, I think, in here.
Yeah,
in the context,
later in the book.
Yeah, in the context of past lives.
Yeah.
So they aren't necessarily interpreted that way in all walks of astrology. It's unique to evolutionary astrology. And that is, yeah, I would say that would be the school that I belong to. But I dabble in more traditional techniques as well. And I am definitely guilty of trying it all out and just devouring it all. And I think I absorb many different philosophies in my approach. And probably one of the biggest influences, which is not even astrology, is my training as a meditation teacher in mindfulness, which had the basis of that was all kind of Buddhist teachings, and a lot of the philosophies and that I've tried to kind of bring to the way that I see astrology, in the sense that nothing needs to be fixed. It's all about acceptance and being with what is, and being compassionate to yourself.
Acceptance, that's a big word, and
Mm.
it's difficult.
It is hard. But when you see your chart and you, for example, see it very clearly that you're not someone who is ever going to be the life of the party or want to be the center of attention, and you just love more intimate one-on-one conversations and serious chats, and that's all in your chart, and you see it there, it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me that I don't want to be front and center. It's just some people are born for that and some people aren't, and it's just not my jam, and that's okay.
Yes, and it's kind of it's a big relief when you get when you have that kind of acceptance. However, you can also see in your chart something that you can perhaps get a little bit sad about. So accepting those sides that you perhaps have not been embracing before.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does astrology mean to you in your personal life and your family? Do you use it
Um,
every day?
I do use it every day. I do. I guess for me, it is a language, um, and a framework for understanding myself and understanding the people around me, and also understanding the rhythms of the universe. Uh, so astrology can tell you, not necessarily, if you think about a weather forecast, it won't tell you which house is going to lose a roof in this storm, but it can tell you, yes, you should pack an umbrella today because it's going to rain. And so having that foresight and that understanding can be incredibly reassuring, I guess, even when the astrology is not so great. The great thing about it is that there is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it will pass. And it reminds you of that.
Mm.
So if you're
Sure.
going through a difficult transit, which is like when the astrological weather is hitting you in a particularly challenging way, you can look through the Ephemeris, which is a book which lists where all the planets are at any given time, and say, you know, things are going to be full on until January, and I'm going to have to take extra care with myself and not overcommit and double down on the self-care and do all of those things, because I know that this period is going to be tricky.
Yeah. So have you looked at the chart today? What does it say now? What are you bringing with you the days that are now?
So we've just had a new moon in Leo, and it's really highlighting what this whole Venus retrograde cycle that we're in at the moment is all about. So the way that I'm thinking about it is to try and distill what's been coming up around Venus retrograde, which for me has been in my most significant relationships, and what do I want to try and experiment with to be more of an advocate for myself, because Leo energy is all about putting yourself first in a gracious, kind, generous way. So yeah, because Venus is retrograde at the moment at the same time as this new moon, and it was squaring Uranus, there's kind of a wild card energy to it. It doesn't feel like anything that you necessarily committed to on this new moon is going to stick. So I'm thinking that this is real test and learn energy. Try something new and see how it feels. But don't necessarily sign off on it for life.
Is it something, and what's the time period for this energy?
So the new moon happened yesterday, and so we'll really feel its influence for the next fortnight until the full moon.
Yeah.
But that is kind of the most significant thing that happened this week. There's some other bits and pieces going on that are less fun, but I'm focusing on the new moon energy.
Yeah.
It's kind of a
Some,
fractious vibe.
will you say a few words about 2023? To me, it's been extremely challenging. Is there an astrological explanation to that?
I mean, challenging compared to the previous years. I feel like it has been a little bit more palatable, but it's challenging in a different way. And if it's felt worse for you, then that just goes back to my theory that you've got lots of Gemini in your chart. Because Saturn moved into Pisces this year in March, and that was a really significant shift.
That's when it all started.
Is it for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a heaviness and lethargy, and just can't see the wood for the trees, uncertain. Yeah. So
But still happy, but overwhelmed.
yeah. Yep. That is Saturn in Pisces.
So it's more my own chart than the bigger energies. Yeah.
Yeah, so with transits in general, there will be transits that are more unpleasant than others. But if you think of your chart as a map, some transits will hit some maps more significantly. So if the weather was rolling in, there are certain towns that are going to cop it more. And with Saturn and Pisces, all of the mutable signs are really feeling that, which would be Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. People with a lot of placements there.
So it would be fun. I mean, I can understand if I have a struggle this year and I live with someone who does not have a struggle. I mean, boom. You can understand that it will set energies in motion and maybe not so easy to understand each other all the time.
Mhm.
So what do you recommend people do in order to understand each other better through astrology?
I mean, there's so many things you could do. Definitely, you want to start with looking into their chart and your chart, and you can look up what they need emotionally in my book. Shameless
Emotional.
plug.
Yeah.
So that's the moon, looking into their moon sign, which I really describe as a love language. Some people will say that's all about Venus, but I stand by. I believe it's all about the moon. Understanding what you need from relationships and also what they need, and really kind of asking them to meet you where you need to be met and vice versa. It's all about communication.
Yeah. That's the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The moon is my favorite energy to work with in general, but especially for relationship stuff.
So we have this book. It's kind of like a short Bible to your own astrological chart.
Mhm.
It is built in a certain way. So is there a reason to, I mean, you have, I don't know, I only have the Swedish version here, but you have divided it into 5 parts. So
Mhm.
like the starting, getting there, and
Yep.
then inspire me,
Mhm.
support me, see me, teach me.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you want with all the, so what's the journey you're taking us through?
So it's essentially a guide to your sun sign, your moon sign, your rising or ascendant, and then your nodes. But rather than just talking about your sun is in Taurus, you're stubborn, for instance, I really wanted to dive deeper into when would we look at the sun in our chart and what would we be trying to fine tune? Because that's the way I approach charts when I read in consults for people. They come to me, we're kind of like counselors in that people don't seek us out unless things are not going so well. So usually there's a problem. And so then hopefully with this book, you can look at it and say, do I need inspiration? Am I feeling really flat? Do I find it difficult to get creatively inspired? Am I lacking confidence? That's all sun stuff. So you need to look at what your sun is all about. What does it need to feel really emboldened? And I talk about the sun as really putting the right fuel in your tank.
Yeah.
And for the moon, it's all about relationships and what you need to feel emotionally secure. So if anyone comes to me with a relationship problem, the first place I'll look to in their chart is their moon to see what's going on, to get a feel for who they are and how they process emotions and what they need from relationships to feel really good. And so if you're struggling with relationships or you keep having relationships that are not working out, you just can't see eye to eye, you feel like you're speaking different languages, look at your moon. The rising sign, Notice Me, is the name of the section, and that is all about understanding how other people see you. Because we may feel one way on the inside, but the way people actually perceive us is very often completely different. And so that ascendant sign, it's really describing how other people experience your personality and your presence. And when you can understand that, then you can start to see why people have certain reactions to you and play to your strengths as well. You know, if you have got an amazing poker face, maybe you feel like total emotional wreck on the inside. I'm not even going to level that at a star sign, but you know who you are. But on the outside, you could be really stoic and cool as a cucumber and, you know, like a Capricorn rising and just seem like everything is completely under control, totally together. So you need to play up to that.
Yeah.
And you're probably not if you're feeling all over the place emotionally on the inside. If you have got that great game face, then you need to be going after opportunities at work or in life that really support that.
Yeah.
And then finally, Teach Me is all about the nodes, which I mentioned before as part of evolutionary astrology. And in evolutionary astrology, we believe that the nodes represent the karma that we've come in with and the karma that we've come here to learn and explore. And I always describe the south node as like a like daggy. Sorry, daggy's a very Australian word.
I don't understand it.
No, ugly, old, worn out tracksuit or sweatpants. It's like everyone has something like that in their wardrobe that is old and yuck, but it's so comfortable. And when you've had a bad day, you just love to come home and pull it on and just veg out. And that is the south node. It's where we go to feel comfortable and safe when we're panicked. And usually it's not very attractive, like the sweatpants. So we bring this karma in with us where we're really have this tendency to run back to the way we were in a past life and play out these behaviors. And the North Node is the opposite. So when I start to describe the North Node, usually people are like, oh my goodness, I could never do that. Oh. And they have a very visceral reaction. But once you start to explore it, things just fall into place and it feels incredible. So my South Node is in Capricorn, which is all about work, achieve, hustle, get more qualifications, more money, more prestige. It's not Capricorn energy necessarily, but that's Capricorn South Node energy. It's very fixated on things. So I work really hard in my 20s. The North Node is in Cancer, which is all about softening and allowing and being more nurturing and really embracing your femininity. And it doesn't necessarily mean you must be a mother, but it definitely has that maternal energy to it. And I really resisted parenthood for a long time. I was so afraid to become a parent.
Oh.
But when I finally did, now I just feel like everything has fallen into place. And that's my North Node in Cancer.
So you had a South Node in Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So so I have, and you have, everyone has all the nodes in our chart.
Yes.
Is there anyone being more dominant than another?
No, it will just be when you cast your chart, it will come up and you'll see it there. Yeah, it's part of, I always think about when babies are born and when babies are little, you know, they haven't had an opportunity to necessarily absorb major likes or dislikes, but they do have them, like from very early on. Some babies are just cranky and some babies are chatty and some love music and some don't. You know, there's no denying that we come into this world with some energy to us.
Yeah. And if there are energies in your chart that you find is not helping you in life, how can we work with that?
I guess it really depends on what the energy is, but I always say that awareness is at least 50% of the way there in terms of working with whatever challenge you might have. Just becoming aware, I'm actually not very good with money, or I have a tendency to emotionally detach when people try to get too close to me. I mean, that's huge to start to understand that I do this and this is a behavioral pattern and I'm going to notice it and be aware of it and I'm going to talk about it. That's a great first step.
It sounds, Emma, that meditation and astrology goes very well hand in hand.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Is there anything you would like to give us as a kind of a good tips or tricks for living more astrologically?
Yeah, sure. I've got some good ones.
Yes.
Okay, you'll be cranky with this first one because you need to know your time of birth. But if you know your rising sign, start reading your horoscopes for your rising sign, not for your sun sign. And the reason I say this is because the way horoscopes are written, without getting too technical, is assuming that your chart is configured in a certain way, essentially that your sun is in the first house, but not many people have got the sun in the first house. So if you read for your rising sign, it means that we are kind of, imagine someone turning a map up the right way when you're trying to get directions. That's the best way I can describe it.
Perfect.
So
that's an
read for
easy
your
one.
rising sign.
Is that also this book? Could I also do that for the book?
No,
No,
that's
not really.
just for horoscopes.
Yeah, horoscope. Yes.
Another one I would say is to, if you're wanting to start to kind of become more aware of astrology at work in your life, to start following the cycle of the moon. That's a really simple way to get into it. And to just notice, maybe journal what your energy is like around the different phases of the moon. So traditionally, at the moment we're in dark moon phase. We've just had a new moon, so we're quite low energy. And then that energy will build towards the full moon. And that's kind of the peak energy of the month. So you can experiment with it. Try and schedule things around different times. If you're planning a relaxing holiday, you could do it around a dark moon time and just really unwind and disconnect. Or if you're planning a party, you could plan it for a full moon, because everyone will be extra jazzed to let their hair down. I'm trying to think what else. The dark moon is traditionally also a great time for cleaning. So like cleaning, purging, do a big clean of the house. If you're like me and you're not really doing a big clean of your house more than once a month, because it's just too much with children, and just do little cleans all the time. But if you like to do a big clean, big thorough clean just before the new moon, is like a really great way to just clear out all that energy.
Smart.
Yeah.
So do astrology work with dogs and cats and animals, pets?
I have not ever done a pet reading, but I know that some astrologers do.
Yeah. So it works.
I reckon it would. Yeah. I mean, my cat is a Scorpio and she is 100% a Scorpio.
Fun.
Yeah. She's
I'm married to a Scorpio.
right. Well, you know what Scorpios are like then?
I think I need to dig deep into his chart to understand him.
Is he a closed book?
Yeah. Is that typical?
Yes.
Yes. And you were talking about the poker face.
Yeah.
Like, and then sometimes he says, well, yeah, but I feel like this. I'm like, do you feel? And he says something that I could never think that he would have on his mind.
Wow.
Yeah, because
Wow,
he's looking. Well, what I can see is so much less than what's inside him, which is kind of very interesting, and I get very curious.
Oh, you've got so much Gemini happening.
Yes, I do.
Curious. It's a great Gemini word. Yeah, that enigmatic quality is very Scorpio. It's like there's so much going on behind the scenes. You just want to peer inside.
Yeah, good. So I heard we're a good match, and that's comforting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So Emma, a last few words from you. If you want to say anything to your perhaps new audience in Sweden.
I'm so excited for astrology lovers and the astrology curious in Sweden to get involved with my book. I hope that you enjoy it and love it. Please, if you do, follow me on Instagram, Emma_VEE. And you can cast your chart and also download the worksheets in Swedish or English, whichever you prefer, on my website, theastrologyofyou.com. And
I have to say thank you for the worksheets. We did not touch on that because it's very generous from you to have created those worksheets to actually bring us from reading to acting, to actually work with our charts. So we translated them to Swedish, and you have kindly uploaded them on your website. So it's available for everyone, and it's for free.
Yes, that's right.
So
and it will help you start to apply what is in the book to your own life and kind of give you the the right questions to really do some beautiful journaling and dive deeper into your chart.
So that's the tip number 4. Download the worksheets and start working with the book and get practical about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. So Emma, I'm gonna let you go. Perhaps your kids are sleeping, or
One naughty one that keeps running in. Just, if you've seen my eyes darting, it's been, why is she still awake? It's almost 10 o'clock here.
yeah.
Oh,
So-
she's a cheeky monkey.
Yes, go take care of her. And super thank you for your time. I'm so happy to have you in Livsenergi life.
I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's see in Sydney, or in meet in Sydney or in Stockholm.
You're on. Yes.
Good.
I can't wait to get back.
Yeah. Good night. See you soon.
Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.